The royal palace of the empire stood tall against the purple sky of planet. It was a massive building made of black stone and glowing crystals. Inside its walls lived the most powerful being in three star systems, Queen Vila. Queen Vila was not like the rulers humans knew from their history books. She stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like liquid silver. Her eyes were deep purple, and when she spoke, her voice could make the bravest warriors fall to their knees. She had ruled for 200 years, and no one had ever challenged her power. But even the mighty Queen Vila had one weakness: her children. The quadruplets had hatched just 6 months ago, 4 tiny bobbies, each one carrying the royal bloodline. They were precious beyond measure. They were also completely impossible to control. On the morning that changed everything, Queen Vila stood in the throne room with her most trusted advisor, a tall named Commander Bora. The commander's face showed deep worry lines that had not been there a year ago. "The diplomatic mission cannot wait," Queen Vila said. Her voice was firm but tired. "The alliance demands my presence. If I do not go, war will follow." "I understand, my queen," Commander Bora replied, "but the hatchlings—" Queen Vila closed her eyes. She knew what he was going to say. The royal nursery had become a place of chaos and fear. Her 4 bobbies were not normal children. They were wild, aggressive, and incredibly strong for their age. Their teeth were already sharp enough to cut through metal. Their claws could scratch marks into stone walls. "How many caretakers this week?" the queen asked. Commander Bora looked down at his tablet. 3 more have resigned. 2 are in the medical bay. He paused. "One has requested transfer to a mining colony. She said she would rather work in the acid mines than return to the nursery." The queen let out a long breath. This was not new information. Since the quadruplets had hatched, 17 caretakers had quit. 8 had been injured. The best child specialists in the empire had come and gone, all of them defeated by 4 small children who refused to sleep, refused to eat properly, and attacked anyone who came near them. "They are just bobbies," Queen Vila said softly. "Why are they so angry?" No one had an answer. The doctors said the children were healthy. The psychologists said they were simply spirited. But everyone knew the truth. The royal quadruplets were dangerous, and no one knew how to help them. "I will be gone for 3 weeks, the queen announced. "Find someone, anyone. I do not care if you have to search every planet in the empire. Find someone who can keep my children calm until I return." Commander Bora bowed deeply. "It will be done, my queen." But both of them knew it was an impossible task. The next morning, Queen Vila's ship left. The palace felt empty without her, but the screaming from the nursery wing reminded everyone that life went on. Commander Bora spent the entire day interviewing candidates. He spoke with experts from 12 different planets. He offered enormous salaries to the best caretakers in the galaxy. Every single one of them said no. Word had spread about the quadruplets. No amount of money was worth the risk. By evening, Commander Bora sat alone in his office with his head in his hands. He had failed. There was no one left to ask. That was when head steward knocked on his door. Was an older female who had worked in the palace for 60 years. She managed all the cleaning staff, the cooks, and the maintenance workers. She was practical, calm, and rarely spoke unless she had something important to say. "Commander," she said, stepping into the office, "I may have a suggestion." "I will listen to anything at this point," Bora replied. Sat down across from him. "There is a human on my staff, a janitor. His name is—" Bora frowned. "A human, a janitor?" "Yes, he has worked here for 2 years. He cleans the lower levels of the palace. He is very quiet, very gentle. The other workers say he has a way with creatures. Before he came here, he worked at an animal rescue center on Earth." "Animals are not the same as royal children," Bora said. "No," agreed, "but I have watched him. When the palace beasts get sick, he sits with them. When the garden creatures are frightened, he calms them with just his voice. There is something different about him. Commander Bora thought about this for a long moment. Humans were strange creatures. They were physically weak compared to most species in the galaxy. They lived very short lives. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no venom. And yet somehow they had spread across the stars faster than anyone expected. "You want me to send a human janitor into the royal nursery?" Bora asked. "I want you to consider it," replied. "We have tried everything else. The experts have failed. The specialists have failed. Perhaps what those children need is not an expert. Perhaps they need something simpler." It was a crazy idea. It was probably the worst idea Commander Bora had ever heard, but he had no other options. "Bring him to me," he said. Arrived at Commander Bora's office 1 hour later, he was not what Bora expected. The human was average height for his species, much shorter than a. He had dark hair, warm brown eyes, and a face that seemed permanently set in a gentle expression. He wore the simple gray uniform of the palace cleaning staff. His hands were rough from years of hard work. "You wanted to see me, sir?" asked. His voice was soft and calm. Commander Bora studied him carefully. "Head steward tells me you are good with creatures." Looked surprised by the question. "I try to be kind to them, sir, that is all." "She says you worked with animals on your home planet." "Yes, sir, at a shelter. We took care of animals that had been hurt or abandoned. Dogs, cats, birds, sometimes bigger animals too." A small smile crossed his face. "They just needed patience and love." Commander Bora leaned forward. "What do you know about the royal children?" His expression became more careful. Everyone in the palace knew about the quadruplets. The screaming could be heard from 3 floors away. The stories of injured caretakers spread through the staff like wildfire. "I know they are having a difficult time, sir," said carefully. "They are monsters," Bora said bluntly. "They have hurt everyone who has tried to care for them. The Queen has left for 3 weeks and I have no one to watch them. Everyone is too afraid." Was quiet for a moment, then he asked a strange question. "Are they afraid too?" Bora blinked. "What?" "The children, are they afraid? Sometimes when creatures act angry, it is because they are scared. They do not know how to show fear, so they show anger instead." Commander Bora had no answer to that. No one had ever asked that question before. "I am not asking you to be their caretaker," Bora said finally. "The actual caretakers will still be there. I am just asking you to help, to clean the nursery, to be present. Head steward believes you might have a calming effect." Thought about this for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "I will try, sir, but I have one request." "Name it." "Let me approach them in my own way. Do not force anything. Do not rush. Let me earn their trust naturally." It was an unusual request from a janitor, but Commander Bora was desperate. "Fine," he said. "You start tomorrow morning and—" "Yes, sir." "Try not to die." Smiled softly. "I will do my best, sir." He bowed and left the office. Commander Bora watched him go, wondering if he had just made the best decision of his career or the worst mistake of his life. Only time would tell. The nursery wing of the royal palace was on the 4th floor. It had been designed with love and care, soft walls, warm lighting, and toys from 100 different planets. But now, as walked down the corridor toward it, he could see the damage. Deep scratch marks covered the walls. Some of the light panels were broken. A medical team rushed past him, carrying a worker on a stretcher. The worker's arm was bleeding badly. "Another one," someone whispered behind. "That is the second one today." Kept walking. His cleaning cart rolled quietly beside him. It carried mops, cloths, and cleaning solutions. Nothing special. Nothing that would protect him from 4 angry royal children. At the entrance to the nursery, 2 guards stood with weapons ready. They looked at with a mix of pity and disbelief. "You are the human?" one guard asked. Yes, you know what is in there. Nodded children. The guards exchanged a look, then one of them laughed bitterly. Good luck, human, you will need it. They opened the doors. The nursery was large, almost the size of a sports field. The floor was covered with soft padding. Colorful toys were scattered everywhere, most of them broken. In the center of the room, surrounded by overturned furniture, were the four royal children. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Each hatchling was about the size of a human toddler, but their bodies were clearly silver skin that shimmered in the light, four small arms each, eyes that glowed faintly purple, and mouths full of tiny, razor-sharp teeth. When the door opened, all four heads turned toward. 8 purple eyes locked onto him with intense focus. One of the hatchlings let out a low growl. In the corner of the room, 3 caretakers huddled together. They were females and they looked exhausted. One of them had bandages on her hands. Another had scratches across her face. "Who are you?" the lead caretaker demanded. Her name tag said. I am here to help with cleaning." His eyes widened. "Cleaning? Now, are you crazy? We cannot even feed them today. They attacked everyone who came close." Looked at the children again. They were still watching him. One of them, the smallest, had moved slightly closer, not attacking, just watching. "When did they last eat?" asked. "Yesterday evening, maybe. We tried this morning but," held up her bandaged hands. "And sleep?" "They do not sleep. Not really. Maybe an hour or two before they wake up screaming." Felt something tighten in his chest. These were not monsters. These were exhausted, hungry bobbies who did not know how to ask for help. "May I try something?" he asked. Stared at him. "Try what?" "Just let me be here. Let me clean. I will not approach them. I will not force anything. I just want them to get used to my presence." The caretakers looked at each other. They had seen experts from across the galaxy fail. What could a human janitor possibly do? But they were too tired to argue. "Fine," said, "but stay near the edges of the room. If they charge at you, run for the door. We will try to distract them." Nodded. He took his mop and bucket and moved slowly toward the far corner of the nursery. The children's eyes followed his every movement. He began to clean, slowly, quietly. He mopped the floor in gentle, circular motions. He did not look directly at the children. He did not make any sudden movements. He just worked as if this was completely normal. Minutes passed. The children did not attack. They did not charge. They just watched. After half an hour, something changed. The smallest hatchling, the one who had moved closer before, took a few steps toward. The other 3 stayed back, but they were watching their sibling with curiosity. The caretakers tensed. "Be careful," whispered. Did not stop cleaning. He did not react at all. He simply continued his work, humming softly under his breath. It was an old song from Earth, a lullaby his grandmother used to sing. The smallest hatchling stopped about 10 feet away from him. It sat down on the soft floor and tilted its head, listening. The other 3 hatchlings moved closer too, not attacking, not growling, just curious. Kept humming. He finished cleaning one section and moved to another, always slow, always gentle. The children followed him with their eyes. By the end of the first hour, all 4 hatchlings had moved to within 5 feet of him. They were still tense, still ready to strike, but something had changed. They were not afraid of him. They were interested. The caretakers watched in stunned silence. The next day returned, and the day after that. Each time he followed the same routine. He entered quietly. He cleaned slowly. He hummed or sang softly. He never approached the children directly. He never tried to touch them or feed them. He just existed in their space, calm and unthreatening. By the 3rd day, the smallest hatchling was sitting right next to him while he worked. It watched his hands as he mopped, fascinated by the movement. Sometimes it would reach out with one tiny clawed hand, almost touching the mop handle, then pull back. The other three were getting closer too. They still growled sometimes, but it was different now. It was not anger. It was more like they were testing him, seeing how he would react. Never reacted. He just smiled and kept working. On the fourth day, something incredible happened. Was cleaning near the broken toy pile when he noticed one of the hatchlings struggling. It had gotten tangled in some cloth, and its small arms could not get free. It was making small, frustrated sounds, but it was not crying out for help. It was too proud for that. Without thinking, walked over slowly. The other three hatchlings immediately tensed. Two of them growled low warnings. Stopped a few feet away. He did not reach out. He did not grab. Instead, he knelt down so he was at the same level as the hatchling. He spoke softly. "That looks uncomfortable. Would you like help?" The tangled hatchling looked at him with wide purple eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, it moved closer to him. It was offering itself, trusting him. Reached out with gentle hands and carefully untangled the cloth. His movements were slow and smooth. When the hatchling was free, it shook its small body and made a sound. Not a growl, something softer, almost like a purr. Then it did something no one expected. It climbed into his lap and curled up there. The caretakers gasped, dropped her data pad. "That is impossible," one of them whispered. "They do not let anyone touch them." But the hatchling was not just letting touch it. It was snuggling against him, pressing its small body into his warmth. And the other three hatchlings were moving closer, curious about this strange new development. Did not move. He sat perfectly still, letting the baby rest against him. His heart was beating fast, but his body stayed calm. "It is okay," he said softly to the hatchling and to himself. "Everything is okay." Within minutes, all four hatchlings were surrounding him. They did not climb into his lap, not yet, but they sat close. One of them reached out and touched his hand with a tiny claw. Another sniffed his shirt curiously. They were not attacking, they were not growling, they were connecting. Rushed out of the room to call Commander Bora. He needed to see this. Everyone needed to see this. The human janitor had done what no expert could do. He had reached the royal children, not through force or special techniques, but through patience, gentleness, and simple kindness. And this was only the beginning. When Commander Bora arrived, he found exactly where had described, sitting on the nursery floor with four royal hatchlings gathered around him like baby birds around a mother. "How is this possible?" Bora demanded. Looked up with a tired smile. "I do not know, sir, I just sat here. No one has ever gotten this close to them." "Maybe that was the problem," said thoughtfully. "Everyone kept trying to do things to them, control them, change them. Maybe they just needed someone to be with them." Commander Bora stared at the human for a long moment. Such a simple idea, such a simple solution, and yet every expert in the galaxy had missed it. "The Queen will want to know about this," Bora said finally. "Please do not tell her yet," requested. "This is just the first step. They are starting to trust me, but trust is easy to break. Let me keep working with them. Let me show them that I am not going anywhere." Bora hesitated. Part of him wanted to report this success immediately, but the human's words made sense. "Very well," he agreed. "Keep doing what you are doing, but if anything goes wrong—" "I know, sir. I will be careful." As Commander Bora left the nursery, he looked back one more time. The smallest hatchling had climbed back into his lap and fallen asleep there. The other three were lying nearby, their eyes half closed, more relaxed than anyone had ever seen them. The chaos was finally beginning to calm. But Bora knew this was only the beginning. The Queen would return in less than 3 weeks, and when she did, she would find her children in the care of a human janitor. He had no idea how she would react to that. 1 week had passed since first entered the royal nursery. In that time, everything had changed. The scratches on the walls were still there. The broken toys still littered the corners, But the nursery no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a home. The four hatchlings had names now. Not the formal royal titles that would be given to them later, but simple names that had started using. The smallest one, the first to trust him, he called. The largest and most stubborn one was. The curious one who always explored everything was named. And the quiet one who watched everything with serious eyes was. At first, the caretakers were shocked that a janitor would dare to name royal children, but Commander Bora allowed it. The children responded to these names. They turned their heads when called. They seemed to like having something that was just theirs. Arrived every morning at sunrise. He no longer brought his cleaning cart. There was no pretending anymore. He was there for the children, and everyone knew it. The hatchlings would rush to the door when they heard his footsteps. They made excited chirping sounds, something the caretakers had never heard before. When entered, they would crowd around his legs, reaching up with their small arms, wanting to be picked up. He would lift them one by one, checking their eyes, their teeth, their claws, making sure they were healthy, making sure they were happy. "Good morning, little ones," he would say in his soft voice. "Did you sleep well?" Of course, they could not answer in words. Children did not speak until they were almost 2 years old, but they communicated in other ways, would purr and press against his chest, would grab his finger with surprising strength, would try to climb up to his shoulders, would simply rest her head against his neck and close her eyes. The caretakers watched all of this with amazement. Who had been so tired and hopeless before, now spent her morning smiling. She had never seen the children like this. She had never imagined they could be like this. "How do you do it?" she asked one day. "What is your secret?" Thought about the question for a moment. "I do not have a secret. I just treat them like they are important, like they matter, like their feelings are real." "We try to do that too," said. "No," said gently. "You tried to manage them, to control them. You were doing your job and you were doing it well, but that is not what they needed." "What did they need?" Looked at the four hatchlings playing in the center of the room, was chasing around a soft pillow, was trying to stack blocks, getting frustrated when they fell, was watching everything with her serious eyes, occasionally making small sounds of approval or disapproval. They needed someone who was not afraid of them, said. Someone who did not see them as problems to be solved. Someone who saw them as just children. It sounded so simple when he said it, but knew it was not simple at all. Fear was hard to control. When a creature had sharp teeth and claws, when it had already hurt others, the natural response was fear. Had somehow moved past that fear. He had looked at 4 dangerous hatchlings and seen only 4 bobbies who needed love. In the second week, introduced something new: stories. Every afternoon after lunch and playtime, he would gather the 4 hatchlings in a pile of soft blankets. They would climb over each other, fighting for the best spot closest to him. Usually one. She was small but determined. Then would start talking. He told them stories from Earth. Simple stories at first, tales of animals and forests and mountains. He told them about dogs and cats, about birds that could sing and fish that could swim. He told them about rain and snow, about oceans and deserts. The hatchlings could not understand the words. They were too young, but they understood his voice, the rise and fall of it, the warmth in it. They would lie there with their eyes half closed, listening, completely peaceful. "There was once a small bird," would say, "who was afraid to fly. All the other birds flew high in the sky, but this little bird stayed on the ground. It was scared. What if it fell? What if it failed?" Would grunt at this part, as if disagreeing with the scared bird. But one day a storm came. The wind blew hard and the rain fell heavy. The little bird had to make a choice: stay on the ground and be washed away, or try to fly. Would lean forward, eyes bright with curiosity. So the little bird spread its wings. It was so scared. Its heart beat so fast, but it jumped into the air, and it flew. It flew higher than any bird had ever flown. because sometimes we do not know how strong we are until being strong is the only choice we have. By the end of the story, all four hatchlings would be asleep, piled on top of each other and on top of a warm, peaceful heap of silver skin and soft breathing. The caretakers took pictures. They could not help it. No one would believe this without proof. The change in the hatchlings was remarkable. They slept through the night now. They ate regular meals without attacking anyone. They played gently, well, mostly gently. Still liked to wrestle, but it was playful wrestling, not violent. They also started showing individual personalities. Was the cuddler. She wanted to be held constantly. If put her down, she would cry until he picked her up again. She slept on his chest during nap time and held onto his shirt with her tiny claws. Was the protector. Even though he was only 6 months old, he seemed to understand that his siblings needed watching. When strangers entered the nursery, he would stand in front of the others, growling softly. But when told him it was okay, he would relax. Was the explorer. He wanted to touch everything, taste everything, climb everything. Had to watch him constantly, pulling him back from dangerous situations. But he also encouraged the curiosity. He would show new things and explain what they were, even though could not understand the words yet. Was the watcher. She observed everything with her serious purple eyes. She rarely made sounds, but when she did, the others listened. She was the thinker of the group, always processing, always analyzing. Suspected she understood more than anyone realized. Together, the four of them had formed a unit, a family within a family, and at the center of that family, whether he intended it or not, was. Near the end of the second week, something happened that made everyone understand how deep the bond had become. Got sick. It was nothing serious, just a cold. Humans got them all the time. He woke up with a sore throat and a runny nose and a slight fever. The palace medical staff told him to rest for a day or two. I will be fine, he told Commander Bora. I just need to let the children know I will be gone. But when he went to the nursery to explain, the hatchlings would not accept it. Started crying the moment she smelled something different about him. She clung to his leg and would not let go. Stood between and the door, growling at anyone who tried to take him away. Made panic sounds, running in circles. Even the calm one made small distressed noises. You cannot leave, said, watching the chaos. Look at them. If you go, they will hurt themselves or someone else. Looked at the four small beings who had become his whole world. They were terrified, not of him being sick, but of him being gone. They had finally found someone they trusted, and the thought of losing him was unbearable. He sat down on the nursery floor. Immediately, all four hatchlings climbed onto him, on his chest, and on either side, in his lap. Okay, he said softly, sniffling, I will stay. For the next 2 days lived in the nursery. He slept there, ate there, recovered there. The children never left his side. When he coughed, they looked worried. When his fever spiked, they pressed their cool silver bodies against him to help. And when his fever finally broke on the third morning, made a sound that had never heard before. It was not a word exactly, but it was something close. She said. His heart stopped. He looked at the tiny hatchling in his arms. She was looking up at him with her big purple eyes, and she said it again. It was the word for father. The other three heard it and started copying. They said it over and over, like it was the most wonderful word in the universe. Felt tears forming in his eyes. He was just a janitor. He was just a human far from home, doing a job no one else wanted. But these four small beings had chosen him. They had made him family. I am here, he whispered, holding them close. I am here, little ones. I am not going anywhere. In the corner of the room, wiped tears from her own eyes. She had worked in the palace for 20 years. She had seen many things, but she had never seen anything like this. The human janitor had become a father, and the royal quadruplets had finally found their home. Queen Vila's ship came out of hyperspace 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The diplomatic mission had been a success, faster than anyone expected. The Alliance had agreed to peace terms, and the threat of war had been pushed back for another century. But the Queen had not been thinking about politics for the last several days. She had been thinking about her children. Every night in her private chambers on the ship, she had received reports from Commander Bora. The reports were confusing. They spoke of a human janitor who had somehow connected with the Quadruplets. They mentioned peaceful nights and regular meals. They described 4 hatchlings who laughed and played instead of screaming and fighting. Queen Vila did not believe any of it. She had seen her children before she left. She had seen the wild look in their eyes, the aggression in their movements. She had held them as bobbies and felt them bite her own armored skin. They were royal blood, which meant they carried all the fire and fury of the warrior spirit. No human could possibly have tamed that. The reports had to be exaggerated. Commander Bora was probably trying to make things seem better than they were. He was probably protecting the staff from her anger. When her ship landed on, Queen Vila did not go to the throne room. She did not meet with her advisors or address her people. She walked straight from the landing pad to the nursery wing. "My queen," Commander Bora rushed to intercept her. "We did not expect you for another." "I read your reports," she cut him off. "I want to see for myself." "Of course, my queen, but perhaps I should explain first." "There is nothing to explain. Take me to my children." Commander Bora had no choice but to obey. He walked beside her down the long corridor, his heart pounding in his chest. He had dealt with the Queen for over 50 years. He had seen her in battle, in negotiations, in moments of grief and joy. But he had never been this nervous. The nursery was just ahead. The corridor was silent, none of the screaming that used to echo through these halls. That should have been a good sign, but to Queen Vila, silence meant something else. Silence meant something was wrong. She quickened her pace. Her royal guards, 4 massive warriors, hurried to keep up. "My queen, please," Commander Bora tried again. "The situation is different from what you might expect." "Different how?" Before he could answer, they reached the nursery doors. The 2 guards stationed there snapped to attention, their eyes wide with surprise. "Open the doors," Queen Vila commanded. The guards hesitated. They looked at Commander Bora, then back at the Queen. Something was making them nervous. "I said open the doors." They obeyed. Queen Vila stepped into the nursery, and what she saw made her freeze in her tracks. The room was calm. Warm light filtered through the windows. Soft music played from somewhere, not music, something simpler, something alien. The floor was covered with blankets and pillows arranged in a large, comfortable nest. And there in the center of the nest was a human. He was lying on his back, eyes closed, breathing slowly. He was not very big, smaller than any in the room. His hair was dark, his skin was a warm brown, and his face looked tired but peaceful. On top of him, around him, pressed against him, were her children. All 4 of them. Was curled up on his chest, her tiny claws gripping his shirt. Was tucked against his right side, one arm thrown protectively over the human's stomach. Was sprawled across his legs, twitching slightly in sleep. And her, the quiet one, was nestled against his left shoulder, her face pressed into his neck. They were sleeping, all 4 of them, peaceful, content, and completely unaware that their mother had just walked in. Queen Vila could not move. She could not speak. She could not even breathe. Behind her, she heard one of her royal guards draw his weapon. The sound of metal on metal was loud in the quiet room. "What is the meaning of this?" the guard demanded. "A human is holding the royal heirs." The sound woke. His eyes opened slowly, still foggy with sleep. He saw the ceiling first, then the tiny silver bodies pressed against him. He smiled softly, as he did every morning. Then he turned his head and saw Queen Vila standing in the doorway. His smile disappeared. His face went pale. "My queen," he whispered. The children stirred at the sound of his voice, made a small sound of protest, not wanting to wake up, tightened his grip on shirt, kicked his little legs, simply opened her serious purple eyes and looked toward the door. When she saw her mother, something amazing happened. Did not run to the queen. She did not cry out or reach for her. Instead, she pressed closer to, as if protecting him, as if he was the one who needed protecting. She said clearly. The word hit Queen Vila like a physical blow. Father. Her daughter had called this human father. The other three were waking up now, and they too began to speak. They clung to, their eyes moving between him and the tall, terrifying figure of their mother. They were afraid, Queen Vila realized. Her own children were afraid of her, and they were turning to this human for comfort. "Stand down," she commanded her guards. Her voice was ice cold. "Everyone leave now." "My queen," Commander Bora started. "Now." The guards, the commander, the caretakers who had been watching from the corners, all of them filed out of the room. The door closed behind them, leaving only the queen, the human, and the four children. Tried to sit up, but the hatchlings would not let him. They clung to him, making distressed sounds. "Please," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They are scared. Please do not hurt them." Queen Vila tilted her head. "Hurt them. They are my children." "I know, they have never seen you like this. They do not understand." The queen looked at herself through his eyes. She was 8 feet tall, 4 arms, silver skin, glowing purple eyes. She was wearing her diplomatic armor, covered in medals and marks of conquest. To a human, she must look like a monster. To her own children, raised without her presence for months, she must look like a stranger. "Tell me your name," she said. "My queen, I'm a janitor. I clean the palace." "A janitor," she let the word sit in the air. "A janitor is caring for the royal heirs of the empire." "I am sorry. I did not mean for this to happen. Commander Bora asked me to help, and then they needed someone. They were so alone, so scared, and I could not just leave them." His voice cracked on the last words. Queen Vila realized he was crying, not from fear, though he was clearly terrified of her. He was crying because he thought she was going to take him away from the children. "How long?" she asked. 2 weeks, my queen, almost 3. "And in that time you have done what 17 caretakers could not, what experts from across the galaxy could not. You have made them calm. You have made them happy." Wiped his eyes with one hand. The other hand was still being held by, who refused to let go. "They are good children," he said. "They just needed patience. They needed someone who would not give up on them." Queen Vila was quiet for a long moment. She looked at her children, really looked at them. They were not the screaming, violent creatures she had left behind. They were peaceful, content. They looked at the human with trust in their eyes, with love in their small, silver faces. And when they looked at her, they looked uncertain, wary, like they did not know what to expect. That was her fault, she realized. She had been gone so often, always dealing with politics, with wars, with the endless demands of empire. She had left her children in the hands of others, and when those others failed, she had blamed the children. But they were not the problem, she was. "Stand up," she said too. He looked at her with fear in his eyes, but he obeyed. Gently, carefully, he untangled himself from the children and rose to his feet. The hatchlings immediately clustered around his legs, pressing against him, their eyes fixed on their mother. Queen Vila approached. With each step she took, the children moved closer to. By the time she was standing directly in front of him, all 4 of them were hiding behind his legs. She was a queen. She had commanded armies. She had conquered worlds. But in this moment, looking at her own children cowering behind a human janitor, she had never felt so small. "They call you," she said. Nodded. "I did not teach them that word. They chose it themselves." "Do you know what it means?" "Father, it means father." The queen was silent. Then slowly she lowered herself to one knee. It brought her closer to his height, closer to the children's height. "Thank you," she said. Blink to what? "Thank you for caring for them when I could not, for loving them when no one else would, for being what they needed." She reached out one of her 4 hands, not toward but toward the children, toward who was peeking out from behind his leg. "Come here, little one," the queen said softly. "Mother is home." Looked up at, he nodded encouragingly. "It is okay, she will not hurt you." Slowly, hesitantly stepped out from behind him. She looked at her mother with uncertain eyes. The queen held perfectly still, waiting, letting her daughter make the choice. Took one step forward, then another. Then she reached out with one tiny hand and touched her mother's silver skin. "Mama," she said quietly. Queen Vila felt something break inside her chest, something hard and cold that she had carried for too long. "Yes," she whispered, "Mama." And she gathered her daughter into her arms for the first time in months. Outside the nursery doors, Commander Bora paced back and forth. The royal guard stood at attention, their weapons ready, waiting for any signal from inside. The caretakers huddled together, whispering prayers to old gods. No one knew what was happening in that room. No one knew if the human janitor was still alive. Pressed her ear against the door, trying to hear something. "It is too quiet," she said. "That is either very good or very bad." "The queen has killed before," one of the guards muttered. "She once executed a general for failing a campaign. What chance does a janitor have?" Commander Bora did not respond. He was thinking about the reports he had sent. He was thinking about the videos he had attached footage of with the children, playing with them, singing to them, holding them while they slept. He had thought those images would please the queen. Now he wondered if they had sealed the human's fate. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. Just when Commander Bora was about to order the guards to break down the door, it opened. Queen Vila stepped out. Her face was unreadable. Her eyes swept over the assembled group, guards, commander, caretakers, and everyone dropped to their knees immediately. "Rise," she said. They obeyed, their heads still bowed in respect. "The human will stay." Commander Bora looked up sharply. "My queen." "He will stay, not as a janitor. He will be elevated to the position of royal caretaker, first class. He will have quarters in the nursery wing. He will have access to any resources he needs for the children. His salary will be increased 100 times. The guards exchanged shocked looks. A human given a royal position. It was unheard of. "Furthermore," the queen continued, "no one is to interfere with his methods. No one is to question his decisions regarding the children. He answers to me, and to me alone." Commander Bora found his voice. "My queen, this is unprecedented. A human in the royal household is exactly what my children need." The queen's voice was firm. "I have seen them, Commander. They are happy. They are healthy. They are loved. That matters more than tradition. That matters more than protocol." She paused, looking back at the nursery door. "They call him. Do you know how long I have waited to hear them speak? How many specialists told me they might be delayed, that the trauma was too great, that they might never bond with anyone?" Her voice cracked slightly. "A janitor succeeded where all of them failed. I do not care what species he is. I care that my children are thriving." No one dared to argue. Inside the nursery, sat on the floor with the 4 hatchlings around him. His hands were shaking. His heart was still racing. He had been certain, absolutely certain, that the queen was going to kill him. Instead, she had knelt before him. She had thanked him. She had asked him to stay. Was in his lap, playing with his fingers. Was trying to climb onto his shoulders. Was running around the room with new energy, excited by all the activity. Sat quietly beside him, her serious eyes watching everything. Said, looking up at him, sad. Smiled through his tears. They could not really understand words yet, but somehow they understood emotion. They could feel what he was feeling. "No, little one," he said, "is happy, very happy." The door opened again and Queen Vila walked in. This time, the children did not hide behind. They watched her approach with curious eyes instead of fearful ones. She sat down on the floor across from a queen in full armor, sitting on a nursery floor like any ordinary parent. The image was strange, but somehow it felt right. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes, my queen." Vila blinked. "Excuse me. When we are in this room with the children, call me Vila, not my queen, just Vila." He nodded slowly, not sure how to respond. "Yes, Vila." She looked at her children, scattered around the room, full of energy and life. Such a difference from the reports she had received before leaving. Such a difference from the monsters everyone had described. "Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning, tell me how you did this." So told her. He told her about the first day when he had entered with his mop and his bucket and simply started cleaning. He told her about the humming, the patience, the slow process of building trust. He told her about being the first to approach, about its protective nature, about its curiosity and its quiet wisdom. He told her about the stories he shared, the songs he sang, the long nights when the children could not sleep and he stayed awake with them, just so they would not be alone. He told her about getting sick and the children refusing to let him leave, about the first time called him and how the others followed, about the way his heart had grown to contain 4 small beings who had become his entire world. Queen Vila listened to all of it without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "On my home world," said softly, "we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. It means that children need many people to love them. Parents, yes, but also grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors, teachers. Everyone plays a part." "We have a similar saying," Vila replied. "In tradition, it is the duty of the entire clan to raise the young." "Then maybe," hesitated, "maybe I am part of their clan now." The queen looked at him, really looked at him. This small human with his soft voice and gentle hands. He had no claws, no armor, no weapons. By standards, he was practically defenseless. And yet her children loved him more than they loved anyone else in the universe. "Yes," she said finally, "you are part of the clan now, you are part of us." Who had been listening to the conversation with surprising attention, suddenly made a decision. He walked over to the queen, his stubby legs moving with determination. He stood in front of her, looking up at her face, and then he climbed into her lap. Queen Vila froze. This was the aggressive one, the one who had injured so many caretakers, the one who growled at strangers and stood guard over his siblings like a tiny warrior. But he was not growling now. He was settling himself in her lap, making comfortable sounds, accepting her presence. "He decided you are okay," said with a small smile. "That is a big honor, does not trust easily." The queen looked down at her son with wonder in her eyes. She had held him as a newborn hatchling, but he had always squirmed and fought. Now he was relaxed, peaceful, leaning against her. "What do I do?" she whispered. "Just hold him. Let him feel that you are there, that you are not going anywhere." So the queen held her son, and seeing this ran over to join them, and walked calmly to her mother's side, pressing against her arm. Only stayed in its lap, but she reached out one hand toward the queen, connecting them all. It was a picture that would have seemed impossible 2 weeks ago. A human and an alien queen, sitting on a nursery floor, surrounded by 4 children who finally had what they needed most: family. In the years that followed, stories spread across the galaxy about the queen and her human caretaker. Some said he was a secret warrior, trained in mysterious human arts of child-rearing. Some said he was a wizard who had cast a spell on the royal family. Some said he was a spy, using the children to gain power. None of these stories were true. The truth was much simpler, was just a janitor from Earth who had learned, through years of caring for frightened animals, that love was the most powerful force in the universe. more powerful than weapons, more powerful than politics, more powerful than fear. The quadruplets grew up healthy and strong. They called and Queen Vila Mama, and they saw no contradiction in having both. They learned to fight like warriors and to be gentle like human caretakers. They became bridges between two species, proof that differences did not have to mean division. And every night before sleep would sit with them and tell them stories. Stories about Earth and stories about bravery and kindness. Stories about a little bird who was afraid to fly but soared higher than anyone thought possible. Queen Vila would sometimes join them, sitting beside, listening to his soft voice fill the room. She had conquered worlds, signed treaties that shaped the fate of billions, commanded the greatest military force in 3-star systems. But nothing she had ever done felt as important as this, sitting in a nursery with her children and the human who had taught them how to love. On one such night, as the children drifted off to sleep, she turned to with a question she had been wanting to ask for a long time. What made you stay? That first day when everyone else was running away. What made you walk into a room full of monsters? Looked at the sleeping children, curled against his chest, sprawled across the pillows, tangled in blankets, resting peacefully, her serious face finally soft. I did not see monsters, he said simply. I saw children who needed help, and I was able to help, so I did. The queen shook her head slowly. Humans, she murmured, you are strange creatures. We are, agreed, but so are. She laughed softly, a rare sound, one that only a few people in the galaxy had ever heard. Perhaps that is why we get along. Smiled, perhaps. Outside the nursery window, the purple sky have darkened into night. The stars emerged, countless points of light scattered across the universe. Somewhere out there, Earth spun on its axis, a small blue planet where a janitor had once worked at an animal shelter, never imagining where his life would lead. And here, in a palace on an alien world, that same janitor held 4 sleeping children who called him father. Some stories are about great battles and mighty heroes. Some stories are about kings and queens who changed the course of history. This story was about something smaller and something greater. It was about a human who saw frightened children and chose to stay. It was about an alien queen who learned to ask for help. It was about 4 small beings who taught everyone around them that love does not care about species or status or strength. It was, in the end, a story about family. And families, as had learned long ago, came in all shapes and sizes. They were not always born from blood. Sometimes they were built from patience, kindness, and the simple choice to be there for someone who needed you. Sometimes family was just a janitor and 4 little aliens who called him. And that was enough. That was everything. The end.